In December 2018, urban explorer Jake Martinez broke into the abandoned Ridgewood Elementary School in rural Tuscarawas County, expecting to find the usual debris of a forgotten educational institution. Instead, he discovered something that made him immediately contact federal authorities. Classrooms that had been converted into what appeared to be holding cells, complete with reinforced doors, barred windows, and surveillance equipment that was still operational 15 years after the school's official closure. The FBI arrived within hours, sealed the building, and classified Martinez's footage under national security provisions. When local reporters tried to investigate, they were told the building was being used for federal training exercises and that public access was permanently restricted for safety reasons. What Martinez had stumbled upon was evidence of a disturbing reality about Ohio's abandoned schools. Many of these supposedly empty buildings continued to serve purposes that the public was never meant to discover, from classified government operations to corporate research facilities, conducting experiments that require absolute secrecy and isolation from public oversight. You're watching Undiscovered America. And today we're exploring Ohio's most secretive, abandoned schools, where education ended decades ago, but other activities continue in the shadows, where the familiar architecture of childhood learning conceals operations that challenge everything we think we know about what happens in places society has forgotten. Number 6, Bellaire High School. Bellaire High School in Belmont County was officially closed in 2010 due to declining enrollment, but satellite imagery and electromagnetic monitoring reveal that the facility has been extensively modified and continues to operate under federal oversight as what appears to be a classified research installation studying psychological manipulation and behavioral control techniques. Bellaire High School served the Ohio River Valley community for over 60 years before budget cuts and population decline forced its closure. The building was a typical mid-century educational facility with long hallways, large windows, and the institutional architecture that characterized American schools built in the 1950s. What makes Bellaire High School's abandonment suspicious is the pattern of activity that has continued since its official closure. Local residents report regular helicopter traffic, unmarked vehicles arriving at night, and the persistent glow of lights from windows that should be empty. When concerned citizens have contacted county officials, they've been told that the building is being used for emergency preparedness training, and that the activity is classified for homeland security reasons. Electromagnetic monitoring equipment operated by independent researchers has detected signals emanating from the school that are consistent with sophisticated electronic surveillance and communication systems. The frequency patterns suggest equipment far more advanced than anything that would be needed for simple building maintenance or security. What makes the Bellaire situation particularly concerning is evidence that the school's conversion began before its official closure. Former teachers and staff members report that during the final years of operation, certain areas of the building were declared off-limits to educational personnel, supposedly for structural repairs that never seemed to be completed. Environmental monitoring has detected chemical signatures around the Bellaire facility that are consistent with pharmaceutical manufacturing or research involving psychoactive substances. The compounds identified include precursors to medications used in psychiatric treatment and behavior modification, suggesting that whatever research continues at the site may involve testing of drugs or therapeutic techniques on human subjects. Today, Bellaire High School remains surrounded by federal security barriers and electronic surveillance systems that are far more sophisticated than would be necessary to protect an empty building. The facility operates under the cover of a federal training center, but the nature of the training and the agencies involved remain classified information. Number 5, Youngstown City Schools Warehouse. The former Youngstown City Schools warehouse and administrative complex was supposedly demolished in 2015, but construction records and utility usage data indicate that only the visible portions of the facility were removed, while extensive underground sections continue to operate as a classified data storage and processing center, serving multiple federal agencies. The Youngstown City Schools system operated this massive complex for over 40 years as a central warehouse for educational materials, maintenance supplies, and administrative records serving dozens of schools throughout the district. The building was one of the largest educational support facilities in Ohio, with multiple stories above ground and extensive basement areas. When the school district announced the building's demolition in 2015, the demolition process was handled by a federal contractor rather than local companies, and the work was conducted behind security barriers that prevented public observation. Local residents reported that the demolition work continued for much longer than would be necessary to remove a single building, and that much of the activity occurred at night. What makes the Youngstown warehouse demolition suspicious is that utility records show continued electrical and water usage at the site long after the demolition was supposedly completed. The power consumption patterns indicate operation of significant computer equipment and climate control systems, suggesting that whatever remains beneath the demolished surface requires environmental controls typically associated with data centers. Investigation of federal contracting records reveals that the demolition project was classified under national security provisions that prevent disclosure of the contractors involved, the techniques used, or the final disposition of materials removed from the site. This level of classification is highly unusual for what should have been a routine building demolition. Former school district employees report that during the final years of operation, the warehouse was used to store more than educational materials. They describe deliveries of electronic equipment, chemical supplies, and materials that required special handling procedures and security clearances to access. Some workers reported that entire sections of the basement were declared off-limits. Today, the site of the former Youngstown City Schools warehouse appears to be an empty lot, but ground-penetrating radar reveals extensive underground structures that remain intact and active. The electromagnetic signatures detected at the site are consistent with major data processing operations. Number 4, Madison Elementary School. Madison Elementary School in Lake County was closed in 2012 due to budget cuts, but the building has since been converted into what appears to be a classified medical research facility, where experiments are conducted on human subjects recruited from vulnerable populations throughout the region. Madison Elementary School served a rural community near Lake Erie for over 50 years before declining enrollment and state budget cuts forced its closure. The building was a modern facility constructed in the 1980s with updated laboratories, medical facilities, and technology infrastructure that made it more sophisticated than typical elementary schools. What makes Madison Elementary's transformation particularly disturbing is evidence that the conversion to a medical research facility began while the school was still operational. Former teachers report that during the final years, the school's health services expanded dramatically, with medical personnel conducting extensive health screenings on students that went far beyond routine school health requirements. The medical personnel conducting these screenings were not typical school nurses or health aides, but individuals with advanced medical degrees who were not employed by the school district. When parents inquired about these procedures, they were told that the screenings were part of a public health initiative funded by federal grants. Since the school's official closure, the facility has been extensively modified to support what appears to be ongoing medical research. Local residents report that the building operates around the clock, with specialized medical transport vehicles arriving regularly, and individuals in medical protective equipment entering and leaving the facility. Environmental monitoring around the Madison Elementary site has detected chemical signatures consistent with pharmaceutical manufacturing and medical waste disposal. The compounds identified include anesthetics, psychiatric medications, and biological markers that suggest research involving human subjects. The most concerning aspect of the Madison Elementary situation is evidence that the facility recruits research subjects from vulnerable populations throughout northeastern Ohio. Social service agencies report increased numbers of missing persons cases involving individuals with mental health issues, substance abuse problems, or homelessness. Investigative records obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal that the Madison Elementary facility operates under multiple federal research grants that are classified for national security reasons. The grant applications describe research into behavioral modification techniques and pharmaceutical intervention strategies, but the specific methodologies are redacted. Today, Madison Elementary School operates as a highly secured medical research facility with electronic surveillance, armed security personnel, and transportation logistics that suggest ongoing human subjects research. Number 3. Akron Public Schools Training Center. The Akron Public Schools Training Center was officially decommissioned in 2014, but the facility continues to operate as a classified interrogation and detention center, where individuals suspected of domestic terrorism or other federal crimes are held and questioned using techniques that bypass traditional legal protections. The Akron Public Schools Training Center served as a professional development facility for teachers and administrators throughout Summit County for over 30 years. The building was designed with multiple conference rooms, training laboratories, and residential facilities that could accommodate visiting educators for extended training programs. What makes the Akron Training Center's continued operation particularly concerning is evidence that the facility was designed from the beginning to serve dual purposes. Construction documents obtained through legal discovery reveal that the building includes features not typically found in educational facilities, including reinforced holding rooms, advanced surveillance systems, and communication equipment specified by federal security agencies. Former employees of the school district report that certain areas of the training center were always off limits to educational personnel, supposedly reserved for administrative functions that required special clearances. These restricted areas included basement facilities that were accessed through security checkpoints and monitored by personnel who were not school district employees. Since the facility's official decommissioning, local residents and civil rights organizations have documented cases of individuals who were detained at the Akron facility without being formally charged or processed through the conventional legal system. These detentions typically last for days or weeks, during which family members are told that the individuals are being held for national security investigations. The most disturbing aspect of the Akron Training Center's operations is evidence that detainees are subjected to interrogation techniques that would be illegal if conducted in conventional law enforcement facilities. Former federal employees describe psychological manipulation, pharmaceutical intervention, and isolation techniques designed to break down individual resistance. Legal challenges to the facility's operations have been unsuccessful because the detention and interrogation activities are classified under national security provisions that prevent courts from reviewing the methods used. Civil rights attorneys report that attempts to locate clients who have been detained at the Akron facility are blocked by federal agencies. Environmental monitoring around the Akron facility has detected chemical signatures consistent with pharmaceutical agents used in interrogation and behavior modification. The compounds identified include sedatives, psychoactive drugs, and chemical restraints not approved for use in conventional law enforcement. Number 2. Springfield North High School. Springfield North High School was closed in 2009 due to structural problems, but the building has been secretly converted into a classified manufacturing facility where weapons systems and surveillance technology are produced for federal agencies using prison labor and individuals who have been disappeared from the conventional legal system. Springfield North High School served the community for over 40 years before structural issues with the building's foundation and declining enrollment led to its closure. The school was a large facility with extensive shop classes, laboratories, and industrial arts programs that provided students with hands-on experience in manufacturing and technical trades. What makes Springfield North's transformation particularly sinister is evidence that the conversion to a manufacturing facility began years before the school's official closure. Former students and teachers report that during the final years of operation, certain areas of the building were converted to what school officials described as vocational training programs that required students to sign non-disclosure agreements. These vocational programs involved manufacturing work that seemed far more sophisticated than typical high school shop classes, with students working on electronic components, precision machinery, and technical equipment that required specialized training and security clearances. Several students reported that they were required to work specific shifts and meet production quotas. Since the school's closure, the facility has been extensively modified to support full-scale manufacturing operations. Truck traffic to and from the site has increased dramatically, with deliveries of raw materials and shipments of finished products occurring around the clock. Environmental monitoring around Springfield North has detected chemical signatures and industrial emissions consistent with the weapons manufacturing and advanced electronics production. The pollutants identified include rare earth elements used in sophisticated surveillance equipment and chemical compounds associated with explosive manufacturing. The most disturbing aspect of Springfield North's operations is evidence that the facility uses forced labor to maintain production schedules. Investigative reports have documented cases of individuals who disappeared from homeless shelters and drug treatment programs, only to be spotted months later in the vicinity of the Springfield North facility, wearing institutional clothing. Former federal employees describe a manufacturing operation that combines prison labor with individuals who have been removed from the conventional legal system and essentially enslaved to support classified production requirements. These workers are housed in dormitory-style facilities within the converted school building. Legal challenges to the Springfield North operations have been blocked by federal agencies, citing national security considerations and classified contracts that prevent disclosure of the products being manufactured or the labor practices employed. Number 1. Mansfield Reformatory School. Mansfield Reformatory School was officially closed in 2001. But the facility continues to operate as a classified human experimentation center where psychological manipulation, pharmaceutical testing, and behavior modification techniques are developed and refined for use in intelligence operations and domestic population control programs. Mansfield Reformatory School was established in 1896 as a correctional facility for juvenile offenders, operating for over a century as one of Ohio's most notorious reform institutions. The building's imposing Gothic Revival architecture and isolated location made it ideal for controlling and monitoring large populations of individuals who had been removed from conventional society. What makes Mansfield Reformatory's continued operation particularly horrifying is that the facility has been converted to serve as a testing ground for experimental techniques designed to control and manipulate human behavior. The building's original design has been modified to support sophisticated psychological research that would be illegal if conducted in conventional research institutions. Former federal employees who have worked at the facility describe research programs that combine elements of the CIA's historical CMK Ultra experiments with modern pharmaceutical and technological capabilities. Research subjects include individuals who have been disappeared from mental health facilities, homeless populations, and other vulnerable groups. The research conducted at Mansfield Reformatory focuses on developing techniques for breaking down individual psychological resistance, implanting false memories, and creating controllable behavioral patterns that can be activated through specific triggers. The methodologies employed include pharmaceutical manipulation, sensory deprivation, and psychological torture. Environmental monitoring around the Mansfield facility has detected chemical signatures consistent with advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing and medical waste disposal. The compounds identified include experimental psychoactive drugs, anesthetics, and biological agents not approved for human testing. The most terrifying aspect of Mansfield Reformatory's operations is evidence that the techniques developed there are being deployed against American citizens in conventional settings. Former facility employees described training programs where intelligence operatives and law enforcement personnel learn to use psychological manipulation and behavior modification techniques in schools, workplaces, and community settings. The research subjects at Mansfield Reformatory are treated as completely disposable, with individuals who die during experiments being disposed of through cremation facilities that operate without normal oversight. Family members who inquire about missing relatives are told that their loved ones have been transferred to other facilities or have died of natural causes. Legal challenges to Mansfield Reformatory's operations have been unsuccessful because the research programs are classified at the highest levels of national security. Civil rights attorneys report that attempts to investigate conditions at the facility result in federal prosecution for interfering with classified operations. Today, Mansfield Reformatory operates as the most sophisticated and secretive human experimentation facility in the United States, where techniques for controlling human behavior are developed using methods that violate every standard of medical ethics and human rights. So what do these 6 abandoned schools tell us about Ohio's hidden infrastructure and about the purposes that familiar institutions can serve when they operate outside public oversight and legal accountability? First, there's the realization that abandoned schools provide ideal cover for classified operations because their institutional architecture and isolated locations make them perfect for activities that require control, surveillance, and secrecy. The familiar appearance of school buildings conceals the fact that they can be easily converted to serve purposes that the public would never accept. Second, these facilities demonstrate how government agencies can use the cover of routine activities like training exercises or emergency preparedness to conduct operations that would be illegal if performed openly. The classification of these activities under national security provisions prevents oversight by local authorities, civil rights organizations, or legal advocates. Third, there's the disturbing pattern of targeting vulnerable populations who are unlikely to be missed or effectively advocated for when they disappear into these classified facilities. The victims include individuals with mental health issues, substance abuse problems, homelessness, and other conditions that make them easy targets for exploitation. These 6 abandoned schools represent more than forgotten educational institutions. They're symbols of how democratic institutions can be subverted to serve authoritarian purposes when they operate in secrecy and without accountability. The conversion of places associated with childhood learning into facilities for detention, experimentation, and control represents a fundamental betrayal of American values. The next time you drive past an abandoned school in Ohio, remember that the empty windows and overgrown grounds might be concealing activities that challenge everything we believe about human rights, legal protections, and the limits of government power over individual citizens.